people talk about my Tao with such familiarity. What folly! The Tao is not something found at the marketplace or passed on from father to son. It is not something gained by knowledge or lost by forgetting. If the Tao were like this, it would have been lost and forgotten long ago. Some say my teaching is nonsense, but to those who have looked inside themselves, this nonsense makes perfect sense. There are 3 jewels to cherish: simplicity, patience, and compassion. These 3 are your greatest treasures. Simple in actions and in thought, you return to the source of being. Patient with both friends and enemies, you accord with the way things are. Compassionate toward yourself, you reconcile all beings in the world.
Many years ago, I did a series called From the Heart of the Tao. It was one of my very favorite ones that we did, and we shot it in San Francisco. And all these years, I've wanted to do part 2. So I've decided to offer to you the 3 treasures of the Tao, and I hope you find them very meaningful. These treasures are real treasures, and what I want to begin to ask you is, what is your treasure in your life? What is it that you treasure about your life? Everybody has something that they think is very important to their life. According to Pew statistics, what we treasure most is our family and our jobs and or money. And that's about it. Then comes, of course, country and all sorts of personal things. What I would like to say to you is that maybe our treasures are misconstrued. Maybe we have things out of proportion. What is it that is the treasure of your life? Your children, your family, your objects, people, things in your life? Well, maybe our treasure is more than that. And maybe understanding the way of the Tao would require a new mind, a different way of listening. So what I'm going to be offering to you in this series is how to understand the nature of the Tao. And you say, well, why would I want to do that? What does that mean to me? The Tao is something that Lao-tzu, who is the founder of the Tao, the author of it, he used the word in order to sustain some sense of why there is a certain order in this world and in this lifetime, and there is a certain order. How we understand that order is a very important treasure in our hearts. And should we be able to understand the nature of the Tao just ever so slightly, your whole life will change. Everything about everything you do will change. The meaning of change here is very important, though. It isn't going to make your life, well, filled with more gratification. You see, what we treasure is that which we gratify ourselves by the most. Whatever gives me a sense of comfort, gratification emotionally, is typically what I will think of as a great treasure in my life. But what if the treasure of your life was something you just don't typically understand? It is not something you typically can think about. What if there is a treasure deep inside of us all that operates the whole entire life, the universe even, and should we become one with it, should we harmonize with it, could absolutely change fundamentally our entire life, our entire world. Who knows? The practice of the Tao is very simple, and that's what I'm going to give you, the 3 treasures of the Tao. The first one is compassion. The second, of course, is something that we call simplicity. And the third, humility. Something that is very difficult for most people to understand or even enact inside of themselves. Our humility is sorely lacking, but let's just go into it a little bit so we can understand. Great principles of truth, great Taoisms, great truth itself has one thing in common with all other truths and all other things in life, and that is it is understood through being ordinary. The more ordinary you can be, the more insightful you will find yourself. Insightful meaning that you will have the ability to see beyond your own perceptions, your own objects and things that pulsate through your mind as treasures. Things that are emotional, things that you're afraid of even. For instance, the absence of emotion and not being all emotional about anything, that frightens people. But I'm saying to you that should you step back from your emotions ever so slightly, and you start to see them for how they are acting and interacting with you, you'll start to see why it is so important that these three treasures live inside you and bring you a sense of deep worth. The worth of you is far more than what you can emotionally feed yourself through gratification. You are very special, but you don't know it. You are very unique, but you don't know it. There is something within you trying to come out and trying to live through you. But we forget it because we are so deeply moved by the objects of our affection. And because affection and gratification are more important to us than the living Tao within us, we lose sight of our source. And when I lose sight of my source, then I will be left to just emotion and passion. There are those who would tell you that emotion and passion are everything, that they are more important than anything. But what I'm saying to you is emotion and passion are your worst enemy. They are the thing that makes your life very difficult. For every gratification that you and I enact, for every affection that you and I think represents love, there is a dark side to it all. And that's why we see every good thing turn on us in our world. We think something is really good because it's passionate, because it gives us something we want, because it gives us some emotional connection to people, objects, and things, maybe even your own identity. We go so far with that that we don't have really the ability to see anything other than our passions and our emotions, and hence we miss the operation of the whole universe. There's something trying to happen to all of us in this life. It is an order, a wisdom, a love, an ebb, and a flow. And if you let this love and ebb and flow have its way, you will have discovered the treasure of the Tao within you. There comes a time in everybody's life where they feel like they really need a change in their living. I offer you 3 retreats every year at Mount Madonna that are very intense, simple, yet very effective. They include meditation, Gestalt therapy, some insight work. Come to the website at aspire.org and take a look at retreats. So let's take a look at what our treasures are and what it means to have a true treasure in our life. Lao-tzu talks about the first treasure being compassion. Compassion is the ability to realize into meaning, into life, to really realize into it. What most of us do is we gather our emotions on the inside and we love and care and have meaning according to the committee of emotions that we have gathered inside of us due to our DNA and a lot of other things that come into play, which has to do with maybe wounds that we had when we were younger, some traumas that we had, and we're always trying to overcome and compensate for our life with these traumas and these tragedies. And we think that being sympathetic human heart stuff is the way to compassion, and it's not. Compassion is my ability and your ability to really laser in into the meaning of something, to go beyond the logic and reasoning of my emotions and passions. A great deal of my life has been spent, and I'm sure a great deal of yours too, if we're not careful, trying to convert our emotions into something called love. And that is one of the biggest mistakes we make. Emotion will never be love. No matter how I try to make it fit, it can't be love. People will say, oh, if you're emotional, if you have all this passion about something, that you have found love. And when you look at somebody, you think you've fallen in love with them because you feel passionate about them or there's some kind of emotional connection. Typically, it's with wounds. You go on the dark side of the moon and you find that there's a great deal of pain and sorrow in that. The human heart can never fall in love. It can never fall in love. And that's the big dilemma that people have. They want their human heart to be in love and never realize their spiritual heart. Lao-tzu talks about the spiritual heart as compassion, the ability to see into things without the rigmarole of gratification and fear. Wherever there is an emotion within me, there will be great fear. And where there is great fear, there will be great hate and the possibility for hate. In my youth, I did a lot of weddings in my day, well over 2,000 of them, before I was even 40 years old. And I can tell you how many people on one hand, maybe one hand, were really in love. The rest were all in lust. They were just doing what they were doing because they were afraid, they were lonely, they wanted someone to take care of them. There were all sorts of things going on, and that's the human heart. Compassion, as Lao-tzu is talking about it here, is a quality of consciousness. It's something you develop from within yourself. It is through meditation, it is through detachment from my emotions that I start to recognize there's another thing here. There is something other than emotion going on within me. And if I am astute to that and I practice it with all of my heart, soul, and strength, I begin to see something starting to awaken in me. Compassion is not sympathy. It is the ability to see into the very meaning of a person's life, of my own life. This is a very difficult thing for people to do. And for the most part, they don't want to do it because they don't want to upset the apple cart of their emotions. You start putting things in line in your life according to emotion. I mean, how much of your life has been spent emotional? Managing emotions, governing them, trying to sort them out, being confused by them, having certain states of psychology develop within you due to the fact of the whole idea of emotion and how to live with those emotions. Compassion is the ability you have to practice detachment from this. And I know you may not believe me right now, but if you practice detachment from your emotions, you will see something else lives inside you. Something else comes to show you. Something else is your perception, and you understand that gratification of any sort just removes you and me from the state of compassion. And that's why Lao-tzu talks about it as being so important. Most important thing you will ever achieve in this life is the ability to have compassion, because in that you develop something called simplicity. And that simplicity is something that allows the mind no longer to be complicated and trying to be mesmerized, shall we say, with emotions that create thoughts that are a dead-end street that absolutely take you nowhere. I mean, who wants to be simple, really? People don't want simplicity. They like the kind of contradiction of one thought against another thought, one emotion against another emotion. People think that this contradiction, this argument, this debate that goes on between ourselves and our emotions and other emotions within us is what makes the world go round. But it's not the truth. That's why we start to live our life in a very, not energetic way, but fall into depression. Depression is the result of too many emotions piling on in us, our mind not having the ability to sort them out. In fact, our mind absorbing these emotions and actually making them look like legitimate thoughts that take away the very meaning of our life. This is why the Tao is so important. It is you incarnate. There's so much to the three treasures of the Tao, and I'm sure you didn't get everything that I offered here. So I go into the studio and I make very, very important CDs for you. They have all of the discourses I've offered to you here on TV, but also much more in depth. And I think you'll find them very beautiful and very meaningful. If the Tao is to your heart's content, which it is, I think you'll want to order these right away. Go to my website at aspire.org and order yours today. Now back to Aspire. So out of the three treasures of the Tao, we have the first one being compassion, to see into the meaning of life. Simplicity, so we have the ability no longer to be confused by the emotions that are fighting back and forth and having a kind of a provincial, generic kind of mind that sees things in a pedestrian way. And that is only because I'm trying to rationalize and theorize the emotions I'm having. But the third one is the pauper, the one that is the most important, and the one that Jesus started out his beautiful Sermon on the Mount, as it's called. It's blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs shall be the kingdom of heaven. What did he mean by that? I mean, literally speaking, if you think about it, how many people wake up in the morning and think, gee, today's a great day to be poor in spirit? People want to be high. They want to feel good about themselves. They want that emotional boost, that thing in us that most of us think of as being happy. When I am no longer interested in my happiness, now listen to me, when I'm no longer interested in being happy, when my happiness does not depend upon my emotions being gratified, when I'm not spending the day sacrificing my life for the sake of being happy, I have come to the place where I can be humble. Humility is a difficult thing for people. They think it's a put down. They think it's about being socially acceptable. But I'm saying to you that humility has to do with something more important than that. It has to do with living not in my emotions or from them, but so far away from them that I am able to suffer in the right way. There is a certain suffering in all of this. And that suffering is that I start to realize how much of my life has been contained and condoned in emotions that don't do me any good at all. How much it has forced me into living my life, not from my heart, not from love, not from kindness, but living my life from the idea of pushing my life through anger and hate to get what I want. This karma is a vicious one. And it has a way of tearing my life apart. The karma of living in hate, fear, and anger, because I'm not much interested in anything else in my life. I don't want to remove myself from the passions and the emotions that make me so sick. And I'm not sick of my sickness yet. I have put myself in a very precarious position. For anything I do, anything I touch, anything that I try to rectify in my life, I mortify through my anger and my self-hatred. This is why people don't like themselves. There's this deep anger inside they don't want to admit they have, the deep fear inside that they know they have, but they don't want to do anything about. That's why we suffer the way we do as a world. Our world isn't a bad place. We make it a terrible place, though, when we're trying to make our happiness out of another person's suffering, or our happiness out of some gratification that makes us think that we're elite, better than others. And this is where we lose our ability to understand the nature of the Tao. The Tao is a certain order in life, and all of us are a part of that order. But when we go to the order of life and the Tao, we have to be willing to submit ourselves to it, to surrender to it. There is a language to the Tao that the common ears of Greg, who listens to his mind, if I'm not careful, cannot speak. Greg cannot understand the thoughts of the Tao because the Tao does not present itself in thoughts. The Tao is present. I am not here to learn about the Tao. I'm not here to learn about the truth. I'm here to be patient in the presence of truth and to live as the truth. This is what makes our life so meaningful. Meditation is the way to this. You can't have a philosophy. Philosophy is about words. Everybody has some philosophy about their life. It doesn't matter. You can put the words all in the right places if you want and make it appear as though you know intellectually. Life is not intellectual. Life is spiritual. And the problem with most of us is we're not interested in that spiritual part unless it's intellectual. And intellect is emotion, and emotion leads to hate, and hate leads to fear. And fear, of course, breeds anger. And that's how we live our life. It just goes around and around and around. To change this, we're going to have to be involved, not in a philosophy, not in a religion, but in a way of life that promotes the Tao, that promotes living, that brings forth that which is beyond emotion and thought, and brings me into the treasure of my life, the authentic treasure of my life. And that treasure is not out there. That treasure is within you. You are the Tao.